in our first lesson, we talked about what economics is. And so if you recall, economics is looking at how people and businesses and the government makes choices regarding scarce resources. And so for today's lesson, we're going to talk about scarcity. Okay? Now, as you can see on your screen, scarcity is a condition where there is unlimited needs and wants, but not enough resources. So as you can see, just kind of by those definitions, economics is looking at scarcity and how do people and businesses deal with scarcity. And so kind of a huge focus for us is scarcity. And now scarcity forces people to make choices about their resources. Okay, so we talked about in previous classes looking at the different types of resources, whether we're talking about land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, or technology. Those are our resources. People are dealing with the fact that they have a scarce amount of resources. So I want you to stop and think for a moment, why does scarcity exist? Scarcity exists for a lot of different reasons. We're actually going to talk tomorrow in our class time and focus in on some different reasons. But take a look at this political cartoon. You can see in the political cartoon that the artist is giving his opinion as to why scarcity exists. Why does he think scarcity exists in our world? I put a few different reasons why scarcity exists there on the screen, and you can go ahead and write those down and jot down your own ideas about those. Maybe it's because there's a lot of people on this earth. Scarcity is a problem because there's too many people. Maybe the human condition. Perhaps scarcity exists because of the different type of government or market that people live in. So be prepared tomorrow in class to kind of talk about why you believe scarcity exists in our world today. No matter the reason why, I want you to know that scarcity is a problem that everybody deals with. Okay? We're not just talking about a certain racial group. We're not talking about rich people or just poor people. You know, scarcity only affects low-income people. That's not true at all. Scarcity affects everyone. Okay? Now that may be hard to swallow, but scarcity is out there and it affects every single person. Now it may not be the problems of scarcity that you deal with that somebody else deals with. Okay, for example, I have a scarcity of, let's say, milk in my home. Okay, or I have a scarcity of this item for me. However, somebody else may not be dealing with issues of scarcity when it comes to that item. There can be abundance and scarcity in the same world. So, I want you to think about, I just said there can be scarcity and abundance in the same world. How is it that everybody deals with scarcity issues? Even the wealthiest person in the world deals with issues of scarcity. Okay? Let's just take, for example, time. Okay? Everybody deals with issues of scarcity when we think about time. There's not enough time to do everything that we want to do, right? So take your time after school. You know, do you use that time to study or maybe chill with your friends, work, you know, maybe have a job? So you have to think about the issues around time. You know, what are you going to do with your time? What's the best way for you to spend your time? Now, your answer for that may be to chill with friends, whereas somebody else in the class may think that the best thing to do with their time is to study. I hope you pick the second one. But anyways, we all have different solutions to issues of scarcity. And that's what we're going to study in economics. That's where we're going to be looking at how people deal with scarcity. Okay? So you can see on your screen there, I pose a question to you. I want you to think about, because we need to understand that there's a difference between scarcity and shortages. So make sure you write that question in your notes. What is the difference between scarcity and shortages? Not going to answer that question in the lesson today. We will talk about that tomorrow, but I do want you to write an answer down. What do you think is the difference between scarcity and shortages? Now you can see in this cartoon, although not too funny, you can see that this family is dealing with a dilemma. Okay? You can see Dad's at the dinner table and he's trying to decide between paying the electric bill or the cable TV. He doesn't have enough money to pay for both. So, is this cartoon illustrating scarcity or just shortage? Okay? You'll answer that for me tomorrow in class. Okay? So remember yesterday when I spoke about economics, I told you that we're going to have you look at different problems in different perspectives, right? So when talking about issues of scarcity, how do you personally address scarcity? Okay? So whatever issues you're dealing with as far as your own personal life, what do you do? Okay? Think about what we can do on a personal level to deal with issues of scarcity. So please make sure you go ahead and in your notes write that. Personal level, this is what I do. Okay? Then I want you to think about businesses or companies out there. Let's say company A has a shortage of laborers, of workers, of qualified, skilled workers. What can they do about that? So go ahead and write a company in your notes and jot down some ideas about what you think a company can do when they deal with issues of scarcity. And the last perspective I'm going to have you look at is the government's perspective. How does our government deal with issues of scarcity? Okay? Now the answer there for us in the United States is our government allocates our resources. Allocation is kind of one of those key vocabulary words, but basically it means they divide up the resources. Okay? And the ultimate goal is they divide up the resources in order to satisfy the highest number of needs and wants that they can possibly satisfy. Now, is everyone in the United States satisfied? No, right? I'm sure you can think of people who have a lot more resources than others. So when I tell you that this is what our government's solution is to scarcity, I'm not suggesting at all that it's a perfect system. But it's the best one that, for us, the best one that we believe is going to help the highest number of needs and wants. And so you can think about that. You know, think about other countries. You know, under communist regimes, how do they deal with issues of scarcity? Or perhaps a socialist country. Okay, think of any country under socialism. How do they deal with issues of scarcity? Now, we will address that later on in Chapter 2, but for right now, I kind of just want to explain how our government does it, okay? They divide up the resources in order to give as many people as they can. Sorry about that. The announcements came on. They divide up the resources so the highest number of needs and wants can be met. And so in order to try to figure out how that's best accomplished, the government answers these three basic economic questions. So make sure you get those down right there. Okay? That's one of those things that'll be on your final exam. Okay, really important. The three basic questions that every government answers not just ours, but every government answers, is what should we produce? We need to produce so that it meets the highest number of needs and wants. Okay? We only have a limited amount of resources, so what are we going to make with these resources? The second question, number 2, that they answer is, how are we going to produce that? So when our companies out there in the United States make products, are we going to let them be wasteful? Okay, with those resources. We don't have too much of them in the United States. And so how are we going to produce things so we can get the most out of our limited amount of resources? And then the third question that our government addresses, actually all governments address, is who are the products for? In other words, are we going to make products only for the military with all of our resources? Or are we going to make products for everyone? Meet the needs of babies, teenagers, middle-aged people, senior citizens. Okay? So for our government, they try to make sure that a high number of products are being made in order to meet the most people's needs and wants out there, and they closely watch what is being made so that our companies are not being wasteful. Okay? Now, is that an easy job? Would you want to take that job on? Okay? It's not easy at all. So when our government allocates resources, it's a difficult thing to do. Okay? And, you know, in actuality, in reality in the United States, our government does not have control over the resources. Who has control? You. The individuals, the citizens. We are the ones who own all of the resources, all of the land, labor, technology, entrepreneurship. We own all of that. So for the government to allocate resources when it's resources that we own, it's really hard. It's really hard for the government to say, hey, we need this. Make it, please. Oh, this group of people need something. Please make it. Okay? So it's a really, really tough job. And it's very easy to criticize our government for what they do or don't do. But the system here in the United States is such that the individuals own the resources, and the government just tries to make sure that the highest number of needs and wants are being met. Finally, I want to leave you with this picture. Isn't that so cute? I just love it. I found this picture because to me it kind of represents what's going on in the U.S. You can see that scarcity means that there's not enough. There's not enough for everyone. Okay? Even in our system, the best type of system in the world, in what we call a free market system, allocation has to occur. Okay? The government has to step in. Now, the question is, how much? That's the ever-present dilemma when it comes to politics and economics. Should the government be totally over all facets of the economy? Or should they just let us do what we do? And, you know, if some fall by the wayside, so be it. What do you think? And that's an opinion question that I will be interested in hearing your answer for tomorrow in class. All right, so I hope you got all of your lecture notes, and be ready to discuss scarcity tomorrow in class, discuss why it exists, and you will be presented in class with some different problems. Okay, and it may be on an individual level, it may be on a business level, or perhaps an economic problem that the government deals with, and you guys are going to have to try to find a solution. Okay, so let's get ready to discuss scarcity. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.